Hey friends, are you dealing with excessive context switching in your daily development tasks? Maybe spending too much time looking for that one code snippet that you lost in the chaos of your development workflow. You're not alone. Even if you do surface that snippet in your Notes app or you find it in Teams, do you remember the context behind it? Check out Pieces for Developers. We use this to manage development materials across your workflows. This is the tool that exists between your tools. Now, it seamlessly integrates with your IDE, with your browser, and with your collaboration tool like Slack or Teams. And it makes it easy to save and search, share and reference, and reuse code snippets throughout your work in progress journey. Now, my favorite feature is Pieces Copilot. This sets custom context with your personal code base, and you can ask it who you can contact for a particular issue. And it's completely on device. You can use this Copilot without an internet connection. Super cool. Check it out. Pieces.app/Scott. You can download the desktop application for free and start boosting your developer productivity today. Hi, I'm Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hanselminutes in association with the ACM ByteCast. Today, I'm talking to Dr. Noriko Arai. She earned a law degree from Hitotsubashi University and then a mathematics degree from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and has a doctorate from the Tokyo Institute of Technology. And we're pleased to be chatting with her from Japan today. How are you, Dr. Arai?
I'm fine. Hello, Scott. It's very honored to be interviewed by ACM.
I'm very glad. We're thrilled to have you. You're working on some very amazing things right now, and you've also done some cool things in the past. I know that one of them was very popular and ended up in the news, so I want to lead with that. It was the Todai Robot Project. You created a robot that can actually get into the University of Tokyo. How would you have such an idea and come up with this idea?
So before starting the Todai Robot Project, I wrote a book in 2010, I think, titled How Computers Can Take Our Jobs. This book was born out of my academic journey. That here I initially studied law and economics in my undergraduate and later delved into mathematical logic. In this book, I made two predictions. Okay. First, by 2030, half of the jobs currently done by white-collar workers will be replaced by computers. And the second was I predicted that the next AI boom would be soon be upon us, but it wouldn't be sparked by academia. But instead, it would be driven by the tech giants. These two predictions were also made in the highly read and globally best-selling Race Against Machine, but my book preceded it by 2 years. By writing that book, I felt that I fulfilled my social responsibility as a researcher in mathematical logic, which conceptualized both computers and AI. But the book didn't sell as well as I hoped. Most Japanese did not take seriously the idea that AI would take our jobs. I became so concerned with the reaction because I was so certain and I was so confident about my predictions. I wondered how I could make them aware of that issue. It was just before Christmas of 2010. One day, as an elevator door at my workplace opened, a young AI researcher stood before me. And I just blurted out and asked, "Do you think AI could pass the University of Tokyo entrance exam by 2020? And he replied, "I wouldn't be surprised if that." That's how we started that project. If he said, "No, I don't think so," then probably I gave it up. But he didn't say clear no. So that was how I started the project.
That's so interesting also that you're not just doing it because it can be done, you're bridging policy and education and computer science. Sometimes people who are researchers decide to do something just because I want to see if it's possible. But you also wanted to warn the people and let the people know so that they can prepare. This means that your research is spanning across discipline. You're bridging education, you're bridging policy, you're bridging computer science. But from the outside looking in, I feel maybe that academia is siloed and prevents or discourages that kind of creativity. Do you think that is true?
Yes, that's true. I think so. Yes. It is my nature, my background in the undergraduate is law and economics. So I was so worried about the job market always in the politics. And after that, I, delved into mathematics, but not just mathematics, but the foundation of mathematical logic and the Turing and, the von Neumann and all those legends are in the mathematical logic. So I felt like, a member of that field. So that made me, kind of responsible to make people understand what AI is and what kind of impact it would have. I just, feel like it was like, social responsibility as a member of that field.
Do you feel like every researcher has that sense of social responsibility, or do you think that that's something we should make more researchers think about?
Probably. I was just fortunate to secure my professor job, before the academia was dominated by the impact factor and the publish or perish, the mindset. So had I been 5 years younger, I'm not sure if I could have even landed a tenured position in academia, or if I could have had children even. Yeah. I understand, young people, tend to compete and, try to solve the problems for the sake of problems or technology for the sake of technologies. I don't blame them. It's just, the academia is so competitive and publish or perish mindset is overwhelmed. So,
yeah, even that phrase, publish or perish, I don't like that. It doesn't feel good to say that out loud.
I don't either.
Yeah.
If I was, 5 years or 10 years younger, I might have been overwhelmed that mindset, and I didn't land like me today. I don't know.
You are multidisciplinary in that you have a deep background in mathematics, a deep background in law, and you're focusing on your projects though are so practical and so pragmatic. You're trying to help others directly with things like ResearchMap and EduMap in your projects. Is it hard to be a researcher and a practitioner? Because I feel like some academics are a little out of touch, but you're grounded in humanity.
True. There researchers are, intellectually curious and innately inclined to tackle challenges, The true significance should not depend on whether the issue will be published or on the impact factor, So what really matters is its usefulness. I would say, not the pragmatic or something like that, but the usefulness, the simple usefulness to the society, whether that is for society today or in the near future or the distant future, is only a matter of timing. And so as a mathematician, I was working for the society in the long distance future. But now, when I am in software, probably I work for the future, near future, or today's future.
When I talk to people who are in your position, venerable researchers, I get overwhelmed at the amount of work that you and your team have accomplished, and you've accomplished as yourself. You're a researcher, you're a professor, you're a director, you're a founder of various initiatives. Does work-life balance become a challenge? How do you balance these different roles that you have to fill?
It's kind of everything as like, hobby for me.
I love that though, because you're excited about so many things. So it is a hobby, like life is a hobby.
I love to cook. I love to sew. I love to knit. And I love to work. So it's simple. I cannot come up with any answer then because I'm interested. And I'm not that hard worker though, because I sleep like 8 hours every day. I cook 3 times a day. So I'm not that hard worker.
Well, it sounds like you've found balance though. Like you're intentional and you're deliberate and you focus on balance and you focus on life and humanity. And that informs your work.
But I am supposed to spend more time in writing papers, research papers. I hate research papers because, when I have already crystallized the idea I had, it's there. So I don't need to feel like, I have to explain people how it is, because it's there and it's working. If you can come to the website, it's there. So I don't feel like, I have to write the papers about it. But, that's the most tedious thing I do. I have to do, so I do, but
yeah,
I hate writing the paper after I crystallize my research.
Well, I think it's one of those things where you have to get the public or you have to get your coworker from point A to point D, E, or F, and you've made the leap. And they're asking you to walk them all the way to the end of the proof so that they understand how to get there. And you're like, don't you see? You can jump over here with me.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that you couldn't get the public to buy the book, so you created the project and then you got the robot to join the university and then pass the test and they go, why did no one tell us? And you're like, but I told you earlier. Did you read the book?
Yeah, something like that. Well, actually, I have to make it clear. Our robot didn't catch the University of Tokyo. It passed 70% of the universities in Japan. In Japan, the entrance examination is very competitive, but not Todai. I'm sorry. But ChatGPT teamed up with Todai Robot. Maybe it is possible. The difference between ChatGPT and Todai Robot, we made our AI for English and the social sciences are very similar to ChatGPT, and the ChatGPT has more data set, so it must be much better. But for mathematics, it's something different. It needs clear reasoning. So for mathematics, we made the GoPy, the good old-fashioned AI, from scratch. It took like 6 years to make the dictionaries of, but I say it worked quite well, and its performance was incredible and unimaginable in the last century. Thanks for the computers, the nowadays computers. So it was a really exciting moment. But the proof that our machine produced was not understandable for humans. The machines think in their way. So, but it outputs the correct answer. so it works very differently from ChatGPT. So if these two, teamed up, probably they can pass the University of Tokyo entrance exam now.
If these team up and AIs are going to team up and very large language models are going to become better and better, are you optimistic or pessimistic? Is this a good thing for society or a bad thing? Where do you fall on that?
Well, that's a very hard question. From what I understand, these technologies will benefit like I would say top 5 or 10% of intelligent, very intelligent people. But for those who are very good at reading, writing, and understanding media literacy, and already an expert in some area, and if he or she want to use that LLM for his or her experience area, then it will be great. Because I myself use ChatGPT on everyday basis, and I think it is very helpful for me. Not only ChatGPT, but Grammarly and the DeepL and other things. But for those who doesn't read well or write well, or who doesn't have any expertise, then ChatGPT doesn't know what is right and wrong, because it is not trained in that way. It is trained to make smooth sentences, but not without knowing what is right and wrong. So probably those people, who want to use the ChatGPT made wrong sentences, mistakes here and there, right? But if he or she does not have enough media literacy or literacy itself, then he would say, oh, that's great. I can use this whole thing, but that would be very dangerous, or that would be risky or costly for the society. So it's kind of mixture, the probably top 5%, that utilize, it has the skill or, talent to utilize ChatGPT or other LLMs, for them, it's beneficial. And for other people, it's not beneficial. So it's really hard to anticipate if it is a bad thing for the macro society or not.
Hey friends, working remotely is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. And as businesses have rapidly transitioned to hybrid or purely remote work, the need for secure, compliant, and hassle-free remote access is paramount. So, what's the simplest, fastest, and secure way to connect to remote Windows computers and apps? That is TrueGrid. It's designed to simplify and modernize Microsoft Remote Desktop services without the fuss. No more exposed firewall ports or VPN. It's a zero-trust remote desktop solution with integrated multi-factor auth. You've got cybersecurity and an insurance-compliant environment. It streamlines your entire remote desktop access, makes you invisible to potential online threats. Everyone authenticates in the cloud before even getting a sniff of your network. And the real game changer, TrueGrid's secure RDP can deliver remote app to any device with just a button press and no latency. If you value your time, your security, and your sanity, TrueGrid is a no-brainer. So if you're ready to transform your remote access setup, get a demo of TrueGrid today at demotg.com. That's demotg.com, and you'll get an exclusive 20% discount on your first purchase. That's TrueGrid. When I've talked to young people about it, as a person of a certain age, they say, well, you guys told us back in the 80s that we shouldn't use calculators on our math tests because the calculator will make us dumb. And you're just doing the same thing now to keep us from using this tool. But you still need to understand math before you get the calculator. Like the calculator doesn't just do it all for you. So I'm hearing you say that there's this base literacy that is so crucial of problem solving and understanding. And then you mentioned media literacy. Otherwise, whether you Google for something or you ask ChatGPT, your own biases may be reflected right back at you, and you're going to get an answer that's not correct or appropriate.
Because the presence of Google doesn't make everybody happy, Everybody has a chance to Google and search to the any, knowledge, digitalized knowledge, but it makes the society so unbalanced. It is better if you look back the 70s or 80s, when everybody reads the newspapers. During that time, probably, people can communicate better, at least. And now it is so hard for people to communicate each other because they are sectioned. And the rich people get richer and the poor people get poorer. So, we cannot explain if we can access to any digitalized, knowledge with Google, with the help of Google and computers. It doesn't help people happier as a macro society.
I'm curious, when I'm hearing your perspective on the world and how you think about these things, are there any particular mentors or colleagues or people in your life who have inspired you to think about your career or your research in this way?
Of course, there are many heroes, like, in my field, Turing and Galo and von Neumann. So there are many heroes, Steve Go. But I always keep eyes on Tony Pitasi. She's an ACM fellow. And among my contemporaries, I always keep my eye on Tony Pitasi. And she is the first woman who chaired STOCK, the Symposium Theory of Computing. That was great. I met her, I think, in Toronto, the Fields Institute, in 1997, I think. Yes. She's very energetic and honest and highly talented. And she constantly traveled to collaborate with renowned researchers worldwide. And it was Christmas in 2000. I was spending, Christmas with her, and she and me were invited by the complexity seminar held at the Princeton Institute for Advanced Studies, the Proof Complexity seminar. And spending time with her for 2 weeks, I realized I couldn't live like her and decided to seek for another path. One thing was I'm not as healthy as her. I mean, I'm more weak. How to say? And
I think she has a lot of energy. Tony
Pitasi. She travels a lot.
For the folks who may not be familiar, Tony Pitasi is a specialist in computational complexity theory. So she's at Columbia, and she was named an ACM fellow in 2018. And she is a very energetic person.
Yes. And also, I was based in Japan, and that's the Far East, of course. So I thought, I cannot do like Tony. So I decided to seek for a different path, So 13 years later, she grabbed a paper from the New York Times, covered the story of the Today Robot Project, and brought it into the University of Toronto's computer science department to say, hey, our Noriko made it to the New York Times. So happy hearing that story. That, she's like my compass, as someone I refer to when, checking if I'm doing the right thing or, on the right path. Yeah, so I'm not competing with her. Yeah, she's like a compass. And so I just, check myself if I'm doing the right thing. Can I, proud of myself to Tony? And that's how I do, yes.
Yeah. I love that you use that word compass. That's very well said. To have a friend and a colleague who is a compass, they're an academic compass, they're your peer, and they're also your mentor, and they're your friend and your helper. And they're letting you know if you're headed in the right direction. And it's good to have friends like that.
And also, we are living in a very different way. See?
Oh, yeah.
She's so academically, achieved in ACM fellow. That's not what I am seeking for, but still, she's a compass for me.
Oh, that's lovely. I'm sure that she'll be happy to know that and be reminded of that as your friendship. I'm curious, what skills do you think are essential for a researcher in the AI space or a practitioner? Certainly a strong moral compass, a societal focus, but what are some skills or qualities that someone could have in this space to be good at AI research?
Be honest. Be honest. And that's all. Because, those people who are doing AI knows what they are doing. They're using probabilities and the statistics, right? And they don't have any data set telling you what is right or wrong. And relying on the AI and big data is that, giving up the truth. Right? The AI can sometimes, show you the very good, scenarios, or maybe it can write a research paper for you. But at the same time, the researchers in AI must be honest. What they are using, technology, they have to be always aware of the limitations of AI in mind and be honest to the society. That's the most important thing.
Sometimes when I try to explain AI or very large language models to like people who are not in the field, I say that it's like a sock puppet. You put the sock and you say like, hello, hello. But it's your arm, it's your hand. You're talking to it and it's going to come back and reflect to you. And if you're dishonest with the model, you will receive dishonesty back. So I really like your focus on honesty and being ethical and real to these AIs. Otherwise, we're definitely in trouble. So do you see that honesty in the intersection of science and policy and politics? Like, are we living in a time where everyone can be honest and science can be apolitical?
Well, it really depends on which countries you are talking about. Probably the U.S., the situation is apolitical, but in Far East, like in Japan, in Korea, and probably in China, too much politics in academia, I think. And it's not sometimes, but always wrong. That is a problem, I think.
Yeah.
It is really weird situation, probably back in 60s and 70s. By the way, I was born on October 22nd in 62. Mm-hmm. So that was the day that Kennedy was, speaking to the public that maybe the nuclear war will occur.
Yeah, October 22nd, 1962, that was when Kennedy addressed the buildup of arms happening in Cuba and the beginning of the Cuban Missile Crisis. You were born there at that time, in that moment.
Yeah, that moment. So probably I would have died, right after I was born. But luckily, I'm here, the year of 60. But at the time, probably the science was very political in many ways, in many countries like the Soviet Union and the US and China. But right now, it's in a different way. It's apolitical in some countries and too much political in other countries, I would say.
In our remaining time, I did want to ask a bit of a pointed question. I'm curious, have you faced any challenges specifically as a female researcher in the field of IT, specifically in Japan?
Okay, Japan ranks 121st in the World Gender Gap Index. Okay, so we are behind countries like Angola and Myanmar. So it means that there's no women in Japan cruising without challenges. I cannot remember really any year without sexual or power harassment when I was young. And after I was promoted to a professor, it changed to pointless criticisms. The Todai Robot Project was often criticized in Japan for being selfish. And the selfishness is a very, very bad thing in Japan, okay? And however, it is natural for researchers to choose their theme selfishly. Is that true? So that's pointless. But, I was really criticized that I'm being selfish.
There's not much I can say there other than I respect your persistence and that you are still here. And we are happy that you are still here.
Thank you.
And sharing with us. And I'm very honored to have you join us on this podcast.
Thank you very much.
We have been chatting with Dr. Noriko Arai. And this has been an episode of Hanselminutes in association with the ACM ByteCast, and we'll see you again next week.